Hey everybody, John Easdon here from Angler's Covey, and welcome to another edition of whatever we're going to call it now. Um, we actually just put out a poll to everybody and about if we should continue on Bug of the Month or do something a little bit different. And kind of overwhelmingly, it was do something a little bit different. So while we can still use the Bug of the Month videos, and we still will all winter, we're going to do something a little bit different. And starting that off, we're going to do a winter deep dive. So I'm up here with Colin today on the South Platte River for some winter fly fishing. So when we talk about winter fly fishing, there's some very obvious differences between other times of the year. And I think the first most glaring difference is how we dress for it. And this is going to be the most important factor in your winter fly fishing. If you're comfortable and warm on the water, then you're going to have a good time. If you're cold and miserable, it's not going to be a good time. So you want to do this and it really takes some time to develop your best system. Layering is the key. Starting with your first layer, you want to have a good first layer. Anything that's next to your skin is going to be considered your first layer. So these materials, you want to have technical fabrics that wick moisture. If you do sweat or develop any moisture in your body, you want those materials to get it away from you. This includes your socks. So there's a big myth in socks. If you wear 2 socks, you're going to be warmer. Be very careful with that, because sometimes if you wear 2 socks, it's going to force your feet to sweat. If you sweat and that sweat's trapped on your skin, you're going to get cold. So you want to play around with this stuff well before you get to the river. And you may already have a good idea of what technical elements work for you. With socks, play with synthetic blends, wool blends, stuff like that. Finding your heat index, your proper heat index, is kind of the key here. So your first layer, your tops, your bottoms, your socks, and then a mid layer. A lot of times your mid layer is your insulating layer. This is my mid layer today, and it's just a very lightweight down. I can take this off if I get too hot, but it's going to trap some of that heat that I'm getting in my body temperature. And then my outer layer, this is where I can get real technical with like Gore-Tex shells, waterproof, all that kind of stuff. So your first layer, mid layer, and your outer layer, combinations of those are going to be what you're going to want to run on the river. One of the other differences too is our target, the fish. Um, the metabolism of the fish changes quite a bit as we roll into winter. They get a lot more sluggish. They're not really apt to chase down meals like they were all through the spring, the summer, and the fall. They get a little bit more lazy, if you will. So with that, changes how we're going to approach the river. When we get to the river, typically in the normal season, the spring, summer, and fall, we're looking at that morning time, and we're looking for that water temperature to warm up, where those bugs start to become active, and then the fish will become active. That changes in the winter. So pretty much like the middle of the day, or like that 10 to 2 o'clock time frame, is the time you want to target. So you don't have to wake up early. It's kind of pointless. You want to get that warmest part of the day where that water temperature is going to be at its highest point. And with that, so when I first get to the river, we got here today, there's nothing really going on. I'm going to look for the deeper, slower water where fish are going to be this time of the year. As the day progresses, those water temperatures, even coming up a couple degrees, we're going to force some hatches, mostly midge hatches. And that may get the fish to move out of those slower lies to seek out the food. So we're going to look for really soft pockets on the side of the water, or places out of a heavy current where they're going to be able to see those food opportunities present themselves. And as we progress, we could see fish move clear into riffles if the hatches are thick enough. So again, using your eyes and being very, very vigilant on where you're looking in the river, paying attention to what the fish are doing, pay attention to what's in the air. Those will all give you keys on how you should approach the river on any given day. Now in the wintertime, when we're talking about bugs or hatches, it gets pretty easy. Um, Really the only constant thing in the winter are midges. So we can expect to see midges on a daily basis all through the winter. Midges are important year round, but they become especially important in the wintertime because it's kind of the only thing going on. You can expect them every day. Now, that's not to say don't augment with some things like leeches, scuds, even worms, or other things that you might find in your fishery. But midges are going to be the most important. Fish are going to key in these in the larval stage and the emergent stage, and periodically in the adult stage and eating on top. So you want to keep that all in mind. Just your basic thread midges that you tie at home. If you're just starting out fly tying, this is a great time to get into those bugs that are going to work for you right now. So from an entomology perspective, it gets pretty simple in the winter. And as you can see here on the really soft edges of the water, we're seeing some midges start to hatch, and we're starting to see some surface activity with these fish coming up eating these midge emergers. So it's pretty cool. If you just watch real closely, you're going to see a few of them popping. Now, in terms of rigging, you don't really have to do anything super special here. You'll read a lot that you need to go down into 6 and 7X, stuff like that. I would take that on a case-by-case basis. 5X seems to do the job for me year-round, and especially in the winter. But what I like to do is, you got to think about probably 95% of your winter fly fishing is going to be done nymphing. And that's just because that's where the fish are eating. So plan on nymphing. You'll get those opportunities to fish some drives, but just a basic standard nymph rig will work. If you want to use an indicator rig, that's great. If you want to use a Euro system or a straight line system or kind of a hybrid of the two like I have here, I do my rig a little bit differently, where I use part of an old fly line, amnesia, then some mono, then a micro swivel, and then just straight fluorocarbon down to my flies. So I could size this my 5 or 6X, whatever I wanted to do there, straight to my flies. And what this system does, it allows my flies to get down really quick. This micro swivel enables my flies to stay true in the water column. So if I'm correcting or mending or doing anything like that, my flies aren't going to turn over with any movements that I do. So this is just a kind of a real straight, direct concept here. And I like this system. This mono bridge here is where I could put a strike indicator if I wanted to do a standard indicator system. Or the system that I like to run here is a great straight line. This acts as my sider, and then the rest of this is just a straight line system. And now for those opportunities, dry fly fishing that you can get in the winter. That's where I'm going to pay a little bit more attention to my terminal tackle. And this is actually where I'm going to use fluorocarbon. I like to use a little bit of fluorocarbon in the winter or fishing really small dry flies. I just think it helps with the stealth a little bit more, and it really doesn't tend to drag my fly down too much, at least not that I've noticed. So I'm going to use longer leaders, probably in that 9-foot range, and then maybe a 2-foot or so piece of maybe some 6X tippet down to my dry fly. And one of my favorite knots for these small flies, whether it's nymphs or dry flies in the wintertime, is the Davy or the double Davy knot. If you don't know those knots, learn them. They're super, super awesome, simple knots. They're strong, and they really hide the bulk of that knot on a small fly. Size 24 midge eater. Kind of another really important piece of this too. It's in the wintertime, depending on the temperature, I really want to be careful of my fish. So today we really don't have to worry about it, but if you've got air temperature kind of in the 20s or below, it's a really good idea never, ever, ever to take the fish out of the water. One thing that you can do in those cold air temperatures, if you take that fish out of the water, you'll actually freeze its eyes. You can freeze its gills, but it can actually cause irreparable damage. So One thing to keep in mind, if it's super cold out, you're going to want to do everything in the net. If you need to get a picture, take a picture of the fish in the water and never take them out. And yes, you do have to get your hands wet in the winter. Thanks for playing, little Bo. Whoop. So I like to straight line nymph a lot, and I'm just using kind of a tight line here. I'm using my leader. This is kind of a hybrid of Euro, I guess, if you will. Watching for my line to jump when a fish eats those flies. You could throw on an indicator right here too. A lot of people like to use yarn indicators in the winter just because it's less intrusive. It's not this big ball sitting on top of the water. Yarn indicators can work very well. I like straight lining a lot because then I don't even have to deal with it. And actually, with this whole system, it gets your flies in direct contact with the fish. And another really big thing here in the winter too is you want to set the hook on absolutely everything. Since the fish's metabolism is a lot slower, their eats are going to be a lot different. So a lot of times in the regular season, when you see that indicator really move and really jump, and there's no doubt that's a fish eating it, a lot of times in the winter, it'll barely just tick or pause. So when you're straight lining, it's a direct connection to your flies. You're actually going to feel that eat rather than just relying on the visual cue. So a lot of different ways that you can do this. Straight lining is one of my personal favorites. Puts me in direct contact with the fish, with my target. Bam. Yeah, so I know there's fish working over there, so I actually grabbed my nymph rod and took a little straight line drift through there, and sure enough, he ate the pegged egg. And that was the lucky. I got him right at the net. And it got a little colder since we've been up here, so I switched to these black latex gloves. These things are game changers in the wintertime. They're going to keep the majority of the water off your hand when you touch a fish. I'm still going to get my hand wet, but it's completely safe for the fish, and it's going to keep that cold water directly off of my skin. All right, guys, and we have actually another little kind of gear tip for you too. One of the things that happens a lot when you're fly fishing in the winter is you'll get frozen guides. So there's a couple ways to combat this. Keep in mind, none of this completely solves the problem, but it definitely helps. There's a product called, it's by Loon. It's called Stanley's Ice Off Paste. You can take this paste and treat your guides prior to going to the river. So you could do this the night before, and this will help your guides from freezing up so quickly. Now, when you're on the water and your guides do start to ice up, there's something that you want to do. Instead of just trying to break the ice out of your guides, you want to take your hand over the particular guide that's frozen, close your hand and breathe into it. A nice hot breath into there. And that'll thaw it out just a little bit, where it makes that ice pop out really easy. Sometimes if you don't do that and you push that ice through, I've seen a lot of rods break. So you don't want to have a broken rod doing that. Just take the time to breathe on it, loosen that ice up, and then flick it out. Ice off paste, and that will definitely be the best thing that you can do to keep your guides from freezing. The one I wanted. Yeah. Persistence. Oh, he's a pure cutty. Yes. Oh, Mr. Pure Cutty. So I hope you guys all enjoyed our little bit of a quick winter deep dive. The most important thing is you can fish year round. Just make it comfortable. We had a pretty cool day up here today, expecting the nymph, and actually did a lot of dry fly fishing. So just like any time of the year, seize those opportunities. Have some of those smaller dry flies, some small Griffiths gnats, some small mole flies, mats, midges, anything like that, anything that you like, and look for those opportunities. I saw an opportunity as we were leaving. I saw this cutthroat eating on top very selectively. Took me a little bit of time, but eventually perseverance was rewarded. So everybody, thanks for joining us today as we did a little deep dive into winter fly fishing. If you do have any questions, definitely come in the shop. Everyone in the shop's more than willing to help you get geared up for your winter fly fishing adventures. And what we saw today was typical fly fishing. We seized opportunity. So to my surprise, there was quite a bit of fish eating on top. So we took advantage of that. If you throw dry flies in the winter, guarantee you that does not suck. Until next time, we'll see you.